These are not forces with which common men have been accustomed to deal, said the old man then. We are frankly not equipped to do so. He began then, without other preamble, to talk of matters so far removed from the mundane as to be almost beyond conception. Indeed, it was some time before I began to comprehend what he was hinting at, for his concept was so broad and breathtaking that it was difficult for anyone accustomed to so prosaic an existence as mine to grasp. Perhaps it was because Partier began obliquely to suggest that it was not Cthulhu or his minions who haunted Rick's Lake, but clearly another. The existence of the slab and what was carved upon it clearly indicated the nature of the being who dwelt there from time to time. Professor Gardner had, in final analysis, got on to the right path, despite thinking that Partier did not believe it. Who was the blindless? Who was the blind, faceless one, but Nyarlathotep? Certainly not Shub-Niggurath, the black goat of 1,000 young. Here Laird interpreted him to press for something more understandable, and then at last, realizing that we knew nothing, the professor went on, still in that vague, irritable, oblique manner, to expound mythology, a mythology of pre-human life, not only on the earth, but on the stars of all the universe. We know nothing, he repeated from time to time. We know nothing at all, but there are certain signs, certain shunned places. Rick's Lake is one of them. He spoke of being whose very names were awesome, of the elder entities who lived on Betelgeuse, remote in time and space, who had cast out into space the great old ones, led by Azathoth and Yog-Sothoth, and numbering among them the primal spawn of the amphibious Cthulhu, the bat-like followers of Hastur, the unspeakable, of Loigor, Thar, and Ithaquah, who walked the winds and interstellar space, the earth beings, Nyarlathotep and Shub-Niggurath, the evil beings who sought always to triumph once more over the elder entities, who had shut them out or imprisoned them, as Cthulhu long ago slept in the ocean realm of as Hastur was imprisoned upon a black star near Aldebaran, in between the Hades. Long before human beings walked on the earth, the conflict between the elder entities and the great old ones had taken place, and from time to time the old ones had made a reassurance towards power, sometimes to be stopped by direct interference by the elder entities, but more often by the agency of human or non-human beings, serving to bring about a conflict among the beings of the elements. For as Gardner's notes indicated, the evil old ones were elemental forces, connect to elemental forces. At every time there had been a resurgence, the mark of it had been left deep upon man's memory, though every attempt was made to eliminate the evidence and quiet survivors. What happened at Innsmouth, Massachusetts, for instance? He asked tensely. What took place at Dunwich, in the wilds of Vermont, in the old Tuttle House, on the Aylesbury Pike? What of the mysterious cult of Cthulhu, and the strange, utterly strange voyage of exploration of the mountains of madness? What beings dwelt in the hidden and shunned plateau of Lang, and what of Kadath in the cold waste? Lovecraft knew. Gardner and many another have sought to discover those secrets, to link the incredible happenings which have taken place here and there on the face of the planet, but it is not desired by the old ones that merely man shall know too much. Be warned. Now, Lovecraft in his fiction was trying to capture the spirit of his nightmares and the spirit of religion in general, or at least a Christian idea of religion, or something of that category. Not in agreement with it in a bunch of respects, but you know what I mean. He took up Gardner's notes without giving either of us a chance to say anything and studied them, putting on a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles which made him look more ancient than ever, and going on talking more to himself than to us, saying that it was held that the old ones had achieved a higher degree of development in some aspects of science than was hitherto believed possible, but that, of course, nothing was known. The way in which he constantly emphasized this indicated very clearly that only a fool or an idiot would disbelieve, proof or no proof. But in the next sentence he admitted that there was certain proof, the revolting of bestial plaque, bearing the representation of a hellish monstrosity walking on the winds above the earth, found in the hand of Josiah Alwyn, while his body was discovered on a small Pacific island months after his incredible disappearance from his home in Wisconsin. The drawings made by Professor Gardner, and even more than anything else, that curious slab of carven stones in the forest at Rick's Lake. Tugha, he murmured there, wonderingly. I have not read the footnote to which he makes reference, and there is nothing in Lovecraft. He shook his head. No, I do not know. He looked up. Can you frighten something out of the half-breed? We've thought of that, admitted Laird. Well, now, I advise a try. It seems evident that he knows something. It may be nothing but an exaggeration to which his more or less primitive mind has lent itself, but on the other hand, who can say? More than this, Professor Pardier could not or would not tell us. Moreover, Laird was reluctant to ask, for there was obviously a damnably disturbing connection between what he had revealed, however incredible it might be, and what Professor Gardner had written. Our visit, however, despite its inconclusiveness, or perhaps because of it, had a curious effect on us. The very indefiniteness of the professor's summary and comments, coupled with such fragmentary and disjointed evidence, which had come to us independently of Pardier, sobered us and increased Laird's determination to get to the bottom of this mystery surrounding Gardner's disappearance, a mystery which had now become enlarged to encompass the greater mystery of Rick's Lake and the forest around it. On the following day we returned to Pashapaho. As luck would have it, we passed old Peter on the road leading from town. Laird slowed down, backed up, and leaned out to meet the old fellow's speculative gaze. Lift. Reckon so. Old Peter got in and sat on the edge of the seat until Laird unceremoniously produced a flask and offered it to him. Then his eyes lit up. He took it eagerly and drank it deeply, while Laird made small talk about life in the Northwoods and encouraged the half-breed. Just say mulatto, or is it? That's probably what he means. To talk about the mineral deposits he thought he could find in the vicinity of Rick's Lake. In this way, some distance was covered, and during this time, the mulatto retained the flask, handing it back at last when it was almost empty. He was not intoxicated in the strictest sense of the word, but he was uninhibited, and he made no protest when we took the lake road without stopping to let him out. Though, when he saw the lodge and knew where he was, he said thickly that he was off his route and had to be getting back before dark. He would have started back immediately, but Laird persuaded him to come with, in the promise that he would mix him a drink. He did. He mixed him as stiff a drink as he could, and Peter downed it. Not until he begun to feel its effects did Laird turn to the subject of what Peter knew about the mystery of Rick's Lake country. And instantly, then, the mulatto became close-mouthed and mumbling that he would say nothing. He had seen nothing, but his all mistake, his eyes shifting from one to the other of us. But Laird persisted. He had seen the slab of carven stone, hadn't he? Yes, reluctantly. Would he take it to us? Peter shook his head violently. Not now. It was nearly dark. It might be dark before they could return, but Laird was adamant, and finally the mulatto, convinced by Laird's insistence that they could return to the lodge, even to Pashapaho, if Peter liked, before the darkness fell, consented to lead us to the slab. Then, despite his unsteadiness, he set off swiftly into the woods along a lane that could hardly be called a trail, so faint it was, and lopped along steadily for almost a mile before he drew up short and, standing behind a tree as if he were afraid of being seen, pointed shakily to a little open spot surrounded by high trees at enough of a distance that ample sky was visible overhead. There, that's it. The slab was only partially visible, for moss had grown over much of it. Laird, however, was at the moment only secondarily interested in it. It was manifest that the mulatto stood in mortal terror of the spot and wished only to escape. Now, they're not even probably using a real concept of race, although the Native Americans really are one race, all of them. They're not distinguishing between German and Italian or something like that. And it just really doesn't add anything to the story to say, oh, well, he is not all white, you know. There, that's it. The slab was only partially visible, for moss had grown over much of it. Laird, however, was at the moment... Oh, okay. How would you like to spend the night here, Peter? Asked Laird. The mulatto shot a frightened glance at him. Me? God, no. Suddenly Laird's voice steeled. Unless you tell us what it was you saw here, that's what you're going to do. The half-breed was not so much the worse for liquor that he could not foresee events. The possibility that Laird and I might overcome him and tie him to a tree at the edge of this open space, plainly he considered a bolt for it, but he knew that in his condition he could not outrun us. Don't make me tell, he said. I ain't supposed to be told. It ain't supposed to be told. I ain't never told no one, not even the professor. We want to know, Peter, said Laird, with no less menace. Okay, well, just call the dude Peter. The mulatto began to shake. He turned and looked at the slab, as if he thought at any moment an inimical being might rise from it and advance upon him with lethal intent. I can't, he muttered, and then forcing his bloodshot eyes to meet Laird's once more, he said in a low voice, I don't know what it was, God, it was awful, it was a thing, didn't have no face, hollered there till I thought my eardrums burst, and tell them things, that was it, God. He shuddered and backed away from the tree toward us, honest God, I'd seen it there one night. It just come, seems like, out of the air, and there was a singing and a wailin', and them things playing, that damn music. I guess I was crazy for a while, afore I got away. His voice broke. His vivid memory recreated what he had seen. He turned, shouting harshly, Let's get out of here. He ran back the way we had come, weaving among the trees. Laird and I ran after him, catching up easily. Laird reassuring him that we would take him out of the woods in the car, and he would be well away from the forest edge before darkness overtook him. He was as convinced as I that there was nothing imagined about the mulatto's account, and that he indeed told us all he knew, and he was silent all the way back from the highway, to which we took old Peter, pressing $5 upon him so that he could forget what he had seen, in liquor if he were so inclined. What do you think? Asked Laird, and we reached the lodge once more. I shook my head. That wailing night before last, said Laird, the sounds Professor Gardner heard. And now this, it ties up damnably horribly. It turned on me with intense and fixed urgence. Jack, are you game to visit that slab tonight? Certainly. We'll do it. Now, if you're going to look by color, the black in America consumes less alcohol and less milk. Than the white. It was not until we were inside the lodge that we thought of the dictaphone, and then Laird prepared at once to play whatever had been recorded back at us. Here at last, he reflected, was nothing independent in any way upon anyone's imagination. Here was the product of the machine pure and simple, and everyone of intelligence knew full well that machines were far more dependable than men. Having neither nerves nor imagination, knowing neither fear nor hope, I think that, at most, we counted upon hearing a repetition of the sounds of the previous night. Not in our wildest dreams did we look forward to what we did actually hear, for the record mounted from the prosaic to the incredible, from the incredible to the horrible, and, at last, to a cataclysmic revelation that left us completely cut away from every credo of normal existence. It began with an occasional singing of loons and owls, followed by a period of silence. Then there was once more that familiar rushing sound as of wind in the trees, and this was followed by the curious, cacophonous piping of flutes. Then there was recorded a series of sounds which I put here exactly as we heard them in that unforgettable hour. Gnai, gnai, ya, 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 ha, 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 nung, ha, nung, ya, 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 in a voice that was neither human nor bestial, but yet of both, an increased tempo in the music becoming more wild and demoniac. Mighty messenger Nyarlathotep, from the world of seven suns to his earth place, the wood of Ngai, whither may come him who is not to be named. There shall be abundance of those from the black goat of the woods, the goat with 1,000 young, in a voice that was curiously human. A succession of odd sounds, as if audience response, a buzzing and humming as of telegraph wires. Iya Shub Nigrath. Gna ya ya, ha ha ha, in the original voice, neither human nor beast, yet both. Ithaqua shall serve thee, father of the million favored ones, and Thar shall be summoned from Arcturus. By the command of Umar at Tawil, guardian of the gate, you shall unite in praise of Azathoth, of great Cthulhu, of Tsathagua, the human voice again. Go forth in his form, or in whatever form chosen, in the guise of man, and destroy that which may lead them to us. The half-bestial, half-human voice once more. An interlude of furious piping, accompanied once again by a sound as of the flapping of great wings. Yagna ya butnak ha ya n gur kadal la iya. Like a chorus. These sounds have been spaced in such a way that it seemed as if the beings giving rise to them were moving about within or around the lodge, and the last choral chanting faded away, as if the creatures were departing. Indeed, there followed such an interval of silence that Laird had actually moved to shut off the machine when once again a voice came from it. But the voice that now emanated from the dictaphone was one which, simply because of its nature, brought to a climax all the horror so cumulatively in what had gone before it, for whatever had been inferred by the half-bestial bellowings and chants, the horribly suggestive conversation in accented English, that which now came from the dictaphone, was unutterably terrible. Dorgan, Laird Dorgan, can you hear me? A hoarse, urgent whisper, calling out to my companion, who sat white-faced now, staring at the machine above it, which his hand was still poised. Our eyes met. It was not the appeal It was not everything that had gone before. It was the identity of that voice, for it was the voice of Professor Upton Gardner. But we had no time to ponder this, for the dictaphone went mechanically on. Listen to me. Leave this place. Forget. But before you go, summon Cthulhu. For centuries, this has been the place where evil beings from outermost chaos have touched upon the earth. I know. I am theirs. They have taken me as they took Piergard and many others, all who came unwarily within their wood, and whom they did not at once destroy. It is his wood, the wood of Ngay, the terrestrial abode of the blind, faceless one, the howler in the night, the dweller in darkness, Nyarlathotep, who fears only Cthulhu. I have been with him in the star spaces. I have been on the Shun Plateau of Lang, to Kadath in the cold waste, beyond the gates of the Silver Key, even to Kiethamil, near Arcturus and Minar, to Nikkei, to the lake of Hali, to Kanayan, and fabled Carcosa, to Yadith, and Yaha-Nithlai, near Innsmouth, to Yoth, and Yugoth, and far off I have looked upon Sothakwe, from the eye of Algol. When Fomalhaut has topped the trees, call forth the Cthulhu in these woods, thrice repeated. Pa Naglui Maglu Naph Cthulhu Fomalhaut Nga Ra Nafl Thagan Ea Cthulhu. When he has come, go swiftly, lest you too be destroyed. For it is fitting that this accursed spot be blasted so that Nyarlathotep comes no more out of interstellar space. Do you hear me, Dorgan? Do you hear me, Dorgan? Laird Dorgan. There was a sudden sound of sharp protest, followed by scuffling and tearing noise, as if Gardner had been forcibly removed, and then silence, utter and complete. For a few moments longer, Laird left the record run, but there was nothing more, and finally he started it over, saying tensely, I think we better copy that as best we can. You take every other speech, and let's both copy that formula from Gardner. Was it? I'd know his voice anywhere, he said shortly. He's alive, then. He looked at me with his eyes narrowed. We don't know that, but his voice. He shook his head, for the sounds were coming forth once more, and both of us had to bend to the task of copying, which was easier than it promised to be, for the spaces between speeches were great enough to enable us to copy without undue haste the language of the chants, and the words to Cthulhu, enunciated by Gardner's voice, offered extreme difficulty, but by means of repeated playings we managed to put down the approximate equivalent of the sounds. When we finally had finished, Laird shut the dictaphone off and looked at me with quizzical and troubled eyes. Grave with concern and uncertainty, I said nothing. What we had just heard, added to everything that had gone before, left us no alternative, but there was no room for doubt about legends, beliefs, and the like. But the infallible record of the dictaphone was conclusive, even if it did no more than verify half-heard credos. For it was true, there was still nothing definite. It was as if the whole were so completely beyond the comprehension of man that only in the oblique suggestion of its individual parts could something like understanding be achieved, as if the entirety were too unspeakable, soul-searing for the mind of man to withstand. Fomalhaut rises almost at sunset, a little before, I think. Mused Laird, clearly like myself, had accepted what we had heard without challenge other than the mystery surrounding its meaning. It should be above the trees, presumably 20 to 30 degrees above the horizon, because it doesn't pass near enough to the zenith in this latitude to appear above these pines at approximately an hour after darkness falls, say 9:30 or so. "You are thinking of trying it tonight?" I asked. "After all, what does it mean? Who or what is Thulga? I don't know any more than you, and I'm not trying it tonight. You've forgotten the slab. Are you still game to go out there after this?" I nodded. I did not trust myself to speak, but I was not consumed by any eagerness whatever to dare the darkness that lingered like a living entity within the forest surrounding Rick's Lake. Laird looked at his watch, and then at me, his eyes burning now with a kind of feverish determination, as if he were forcing himself to take this final step, to face the unknown being whose manifestations had made the woods its own. If he expected me to hesitate, he was disappointed. However beset by fear I might be, I would not show it. I got up and went out of the lodge at his side. Now, particular times and other things in terms of effort, not just, oh, well, we believe there's something out there, or we know that something's out there, and we're not, you got to do something about spiritual consciousness. There are aspects of hidden life, exterior as well, in the depths of the mind that are better kept secret and away from the awareness of common man. For there lurk in dark places of the earth horrible revenants belonging to a stratum of the subconscious which is mercifully beyond the apprehension of common man. Indeed, there are aspects of creation so grotesquely shuddersome that the very sight of them would blast the sanity of the beholder. Fortunately, it's not possible even to bring back in anything but suggestion what we saw on the slab in the forest at Rick's Lake that night in October, for the thing was so unbelievable, transcending all known laws of science, that adequate words for its description have no existence in the language. We arrived at the bell trees around the slab, while afterglow yet lingered in the western heavens, and by the illumination of a flashlight Laird carried, we examined the face of the slab itself, and the carving on it of a vast amorphous creature, drawn by an artist who evidently lacked sufficient imagination to etch the creature's face, for it had none, bearing only a curious, cone-like head, which even in stone seemed to have a fluidity which was unnerving. Moreover, the creature was depicted as having both tentacle-like appendages and hands, or growths, similar to hands, not only two but several, so that it seemed both human and non-human in its structure. Beside it had been carved two squat-like squid figures, from a part which, presumably the heads, though no outline was definitive, projected what must certainly have been instruments of some kind, for the strange, repugnant attendants appeared to be playing them. Olhu, perhaps, are his species.